A hand clutched a rock to lift him up before the demon, as the boy feared God was gone. Once people bowed down to golden magic machines, they slowly turned those very things into their own chains. The man holds up his sword and wonders if the fight was fair, but the demon just pulls out its own weapon. The boy lunges forward, screaming his curiosity before crashing into the beast and triggering a massive explosion. Arcane Soul is the best modern post-apocalyptic fantasy game you can play. Kim Jun-soo, a 22-year-old student, is upset that the game feels rigged for paying players, especially when someone who spends nothing can barely enjoy it. But the demon in the game claims you're surprisingly strong for someone who never spends money, and jokes that it must be quite sad to be you since you're stuck playing on auto mode all the time. Kim Jun-soo yells at him in anger. The creature laughed, saying the fight was a blast because it had never seen a free-to-play player fight this well before. Jun-soo screams at the demon on his phone screen, complaining that the game isn't fair since he just lost to a fool after spending over 10,000 hours on it, only to find out it's literally a pay-to-win game. But he knows the real fool is him, stuck wasting hours on this game, grinding daily tasks instead of working and having no friends to speak of. Even after winning, he hoped the game's free spin would hand him another Kim warrior. But then he glances at his phone with a look of shock on his face. A white chest pops up on his screen, and the guy gets so excited about the platinum chest he can't stop shouting because he just unlocked the SSR character, Celestial Demon. He calls it the best unit in the game, thrilled to have snagged this rarest character with such a tiny 0.00006% chance on a free spin, proving this 2024 title is truly the game of the year. He says he'll boost that character's power because he just has to beat monsters to make it happen. But the quickest way to level up his characters was to use the ones he'd already trained. Now he stops being jealous of those who spend millions on games and instead uses all his Kim warriors to power up the Celestial Demon, saying goodbye to his Kim because he now has a Celestial Demon. Just as the young man is caught off guard, another car comes speeding toward him. He nearly runs over a student, wonders if this is really about to happen to him, but then suddenly wakes up all alone. He lay there wrapped in bandages, wondering what had happened to him. He wanted to know why he was in the hospital now. His head aches as he recalls the truck ahead, trying to swerve right before crashing into him head-on. Jinu can't forget that terrifying moment when a huge truck slammed into him. Suddenly, a nurse rushes into the room and asks if the warrior Kim has finally woken up. She offers to call a doctor, and the man can't help but wonder why she's treating him like a warrior, especially since the real warrior, 22-year-old Kim, is the one who ended up in the hospital with broken and dislocated limbs from an accident. Jun-soo remarks on the warrior Kim's strange new name and his sudden, searing pain as if the world itself is punishing him for using his kin to strengthen the Celestial Demon. He let out a scream, so loud it sent chills down my spine. The nurse rushes over to tell warrior Kim not to move, but Jun-soo just grumbles that it really hurts. The doctor says he was hit by a truck and passed out, but now they need to run some strange tests, like a magical MRI and a wizardly X-ray, which leaves Jun-soo confused and wondering what this warrior Kim and all this magic are about. Kim stood waiting at the hospital's front desk. The woman figures that after paying for the emergency room, hospital stay, magical X-ray, MRI, and all the other tests, she's already spent too much. Everything would cost $22 million. Kim Jun-soo can't believe he has to shell out $22 million after just spending 4 days there. The woman tells him he has no insurance and must pay the full amount, which upsets him because he insists all Koreans have government health coverage, only for her to reply by asking what nation he thinks he lives in since he has no Legion contract or Magic Tower insurance. He says those words back, puzzled by her, but the names feel familiar, and he tries hard to remember where he's seen them before. With the Legion, mega corporations, the Divine Tower, the Holy Order, and the arcane groups fighting for control in a world God had left behind, humanity turned to arcane science to fill the void. The poisoned earth teemed with monsters, forcing humans to change their very bodies just to stay alive. The boy feels like everything is terrible. It was a cruel world where he had been thrown in without a second thought. He happily went home with the Celestial Demon he had found, only to become a tutorial character in the game, perhaps as a final lesson from the warriors. The warrior Kim's room was tiny compared to the students', and he couldn't help but wonder why he had so little. His body was totally broken. He had no money, and he didn't know what to do next. Because if this is truly Arcane Sue, then nuclear wars, tearing open dimensions, and waking up old gods will soon turn this world into a living hell. He had no idea how he got there, but staying still would mean death, so he had to move. But he spotted something odd and started to doubt if his thinking was correct. Kim points at his pen, ready to stab his own hand. He feels he must check this now, before it's too late. He drives the pen right into his own hand. Suddenly blood poured out, but the wound glowed green and stitched itself shut right away. Junsu was sure this plan would work because his new wound-healing power had already helped him evolve thousands of warrior Kims. He's a special guide character who is the only one without a basic skill. But he could unlock and twist his traits to be far more unique than others. And for a strategist like Kim, that edge was better than just being rare. Now that he has become Warrior Kim, he can pick any special power he wants and instantly heal every scratch on his body. In Arcane, a poor or weak person dies, but he would not run or die because he would find a way to survive. After grinding out 10,000 hours in Arcane Sue and climbing to the top 9 players worldwide for free, Jinu steps up to start his big adventure. Deep inside Warrior Kim, he makes his way to the special office where the player character works. A bearded man wonders if this is Warrior Kim's very first visit to a player character's office. The guy agrees and decides to start a mana purification business because he's broke, having only a warrior named Kim who won't bring in any cash. The man steps onto the table, calls it mana purification, challenges you on knowing dungeons, and introduces himself as Chi Shin-su, the director of the player office. Junsu insists he knows the way, but the director doubts him, noting that nothing in Jun's past shows he has ever been inside a dungeon. Kim thought he understood just how awful this job was thanks to something called contaminated mana. That's why monsters had taken over Arcane Soul. Dungeon cleansing is the act of scrubbing away the nasty, mana-poison grime that clings to these dark places. Too much of this magic energy can kill you. As the boy fights to hold back the mutating mana that turns him into a demon, the job becomes far too dangerous. Shin-su promises to call the boy to join their team once they have more members, and the boy gives him a grateful smile. But the director still isn't quite sure. He has seen many people like Kim come to him for cash and leave shattered, but never again. Even so, the boy told the boss to relax because he'd end up better than him, surprising the director, since working hard was Warrior Kim's specialty, having spent 10,000 hours playing. Team leader Servo asks why a rookie wants to join his team, but Kim shrugs and says he has no idea, only that he was sent there to start work. Servo grabs him by the collar, demanding to know if he looks like a liar and pointing out where his eyes lost their determination. He warns against begging for mercy once you change, and if he senses a mutant inside you, he will kill you instantly. Kim nods that he'll remember this, noting the guy was just trying to scare a beginner, which feels just like real life, and he can't help wondering why an R-rank hero was there since they still look normal, even though that was before they awakened. Another man steps up to beg Servo to stop treating the rookie so harshly, reminding him that they already have plenty of helpers and that the newcomer has 5 years of experience cleaning dungeons. Servo doubts if he looks like a real hero and wonders why he hasn't changed, so he walks away and says he only has 4 days to clean this mess. Junsu thought to himself that he was even more of a nuisance here than he was in the game. Then the long-haired guy taps his shoulder and says not to worry, because even though the deer can be tough, he's actually pretty nice. Kim finally said he got it. They step through the gate dripping with thick, glistening slime. They claim it's gross, and they'll never get over it. Deer yells that he's opening the doors and tells everyone to get ready. He presses the button to get in. That's the way they step into the dangerous mana zone. The leader roars at everyone to stand their ground. Dirty magic leaks through the basement floor like tiny, crawling worms. Those are just weak, slimy monsters that have been poisoned. Junsu realizes that the slimes inside monsters are what make the mana purification process possible. Even though they're weak fighters, slimes are a real pain because if you hit them with a shovel, they just split in half and fly apart, meaning you have to keep hitting them until you find and smash their glowing mana core to finally kill them. The team yells to each other to locate the mana core before they get poisoned. Kim sprints toward a slime, shouting at his teammate to get back a bit. So he grabs the shovel to smash the slime because he won't pay for the mess, and when he hits it, he finds a golden treasure inside. As the slime melts away, the man lets out a loud shout. Kim smiled and said this was perfect because he was just getting warmed up, rising from the ground with aggressive moves. The warrior dashes through the slimy mess, cutting them down to find their glowing cores and repeating it until none are left. One of the group members was baffled by that noise, especially since he had just wiped out those slimes with a single blow. Kim wonders how that was possible as she walks toward the giant slime. Kim was convinced it could easily happen. 2 days before the accident, he was lying on the ground, confused about where he was, until he spotted something odd, picked up a coin, and said, "I found it." That's how he learned to be a treasure hunter. Kim is overjoyed to have discovered 5001, the most vital trait for a true warrior, even though the people in the plaza think he's strange before heading into the dungeon after he learns so much and gained new powers. He vomits everything into the trash can, screaming as he gets rid of the bad stuff, and suddenly becomes resistant to poison. Kim noted that while that fight was tough, gaining those new traits felt just like playing the game, where you only need to meet the right conditions to get them. And he looks proud of everything he built with his own hard work. You could pick from 6 different traits and swap them out whenever you felt like it. Your treasure hunter skill lets you spot the weak spot in your enemy. And thanks to that special ability, he finds the mana core inside the giant slimy monster, watches it melt away, and turns its remains into a skull. Deer shouts to everyone to watch out so nobody gets hit. Kim was caked in dirty slime, but grinned, saying it was totally worth it because his special warrior power let him shrug off the tainted magic. A bus rumbles down the busy streets of the city. Kim thinks that even with her special traits, working all day is still too tiring. The hedgehog popped up to say that thanks to the warrior, everyone was leaving way earlier than expected. Seeing that was amazing. And when he asked if Kim expected to wake up like the deer, she just laughed and said she only knows how to use a shovel from her military service. His coworker insists he's truly amazing. Kim realized the man's condition was worsening, likely because he had been exposed to too much tainted mana. So he tells the man to take tomorrow off since he doesn't look well, but Hedgehog says he'd rather become a mutant than stay in debt. Kim feels it makes sense since there are hardly any reasons to take on such a job. He jams his shovel deep into the earth. For days later, Kim let out a long sigh of relief that the hard work was finally done, even though everyone looked completely worn out from the job. Someone suddenly vomits on the floor. The hedgehog drops to his knees and starts talking about his head. Kim thinks he warned the guy not to push too hard, but Deer walks over, saying he looks ready for the next fight, though Deer is still new and surprises Kim by saying he never thought Kim would finish his contract, so he congratulates him on the good work. Kim jokes that he only pulled it off by pretending to be a cleaner, and now he thinks the job will be way too easy. It looked like he was used to it, wondering if he really was in our rank, while Servo mumbled from exhaustion. Then they hear a scream, and Kim spins around. The hedgehog begins to burn up, slowly losing himself to a dark, poisonous power. His friends wonder if the spikes are hurting him. Just then, Servo dashes in shouting, "What on earth was that?" Kim is convinced that this simply can't be true. The team leader tells Hedgehog to keep going because they're almost free. But he had already changed, sparking a massive blast in the poison land. Kim couldn't believe it because the hedgehog's body had already changed. Suddenly, he grew as tall as a mountain before the warrior and had become a monster. Hedgehog was now a mutant. He had completely lost his mind, and if they tried to fight him, everyone there would die. Since every new power Kim had gained was built for cleaning out a dungeon, they would be useless to him right now. No matter how hard he thought about it, he always came back to the same conclusion. It was impossible. The hedgehog charges forward and hurls Kim across the floor, pinning him face down in the dirt. Kim realizes that the gap between their powers is too wide, and if things keep going like this, he's going to die. But then, he manages to gain the trait of endurance. Kim knows he found what he needed because quitting is too soon, so he wonders how to survive the monster before deciding to erase some of its traits first. Now that strength is useful, the mana heart will help him control his power, while his endurance ensures he takes no damage at all. With mana absorption, deep breathing for faster healing, and corruption resistance, he has finally unlocked his last power. Finally, Kim gathers everything she needs and gets ready to fight. The hedgehog lunges at him once more. Kim plants his shovel in the ground, pouring green energy and superhuman strength into it to make it 10 times as powerful. The warrior strikes Hedgehog, sending him soaring high into the air. He felt good because it was working and he knew he could do it. The hedgehog bumps into the wall, but then it quickly rolls into a ball. Kim jumps at the sight of it. The hedgehog whirls around him, using a rock to spring from the ground and aim for a hit on Kim's head. The boy pleads for God's love just as the hedgehog strikes him. The creature yanks back with its claw dug into the earth, gnashing its teeth at Kim, while the boy springs upward and shouts that even with his special power on, the pain is still terrible. But if he stops right now, he'll lose his life. So, he had no choice but to press on with his attack. One of Hedgehog's spikes snaps and flies straight for Kim's face, sending even more spikes toward the warrior. Kim hits the hard ground, wounded and sure he just needed to hang on a little longer. He wanted just one more try to hit Hedgehog, but blood splattered behind him again. Kim is absolutely hurting from the sharp spikes. The hedgehog roars again and shoots a spike that tears Kim's fingers wide open. The boy screams from the ground, admitting that he can't beat Warrior Kim, just as he knew he wouldn't. The hedgehog hits the ground hard again. While playing Arcane Souls, Jun-Soo found himself completely trapped by the game. He used to brag that he could handle the rush all by himself with just Warrior Kim, and when he was actually playing, the game felt incredibly easy. Since hunting monsters felt like just one simple click, he never really considered how it might feel for the character. He would throw his characters into dangerous situations, claiming it was all just for good training. Now he understood everything, having suffered so much just to gain that ordinary trait, and he finally landed a perfect blow on Hedgehog, sending him flying because there was no better way to do it. With the activated trait called Mutant Muscle, you can win without paying any price. The Hedgehog tumbles onto his back, spinning until he lands on his spines. Kim finally understands that his reckless fury came from a hidden trait unlocked when he pushed his mana, heart, and strength too far, activating a mutant power that made this moment inevitable. Kim holds up his twisted arm to stop Hedgehog's strike, grinning that he no longer feels pain and daring the other to hit him again. The monster quickly wraps its fist and spikes around its hand, then hits Kim right in the stomach with it. The boy wonders if the Hedgehog is holding back his full power. With his stomach now twisted and ruined, something truly weird starts to take shape inside him. Kim grows a mutant body, swelling up into a giant size. He thanked him, saying he was stronger now because of him, so Hedgehog charged straight at the boy. Now that they are eye to eye, they throw everything they have at each other. A deer watches from afar, confused by the noise and wondering what is happening. He watches Kim and the Hedgehog fight back and forth with equal strength. He is shocked to see Warrior Kim and wonders if he is a superhuman strong enough to stand equal to a mutant. Kim and the Hedgehog are both thrown back. They both topple over and land flat on their backs. The warrior realized that growing to match the monster size didn't make him strong, and at this rate, he'd still be at a disadvantage. But the beast rises to its feet and lets out a mighty roar as Kim realizes there is no turning back. You just turn on the special trait that keeps you clean. He insists on trusting himself, but then tells himself to just zone out. Deer stands frozen in shock, staring wide-eyed at the scene unfolding before him. Kim's hand starts to twist and warp into a strange shape. His face twists into a scary monster form, but while Kim steps up to fight the Hedgehog, a glowing circle appears above his head. He then shoots a magic spell right at the mutant. As he slowly wipes the Hedgehog away with his strike, the enemy gets tossed right into the building. Deer wonders if Kim is a monster because he turned into a mutant while fighting another one. He wonders what on earth that was, but knows he needs to leave right now. Kim steps in to block Deer's view. Then he reached out his hand to the leader. The deer just closed its eyes, thinking nothing had happened, but it was already gone. Kim lets out a weary sigh, while Deer starts to wonder how he turned back into a human. Then the warrior crashed to the ground, panting hard, and shouted that he had done it. If he keeps the mutant form and muscles, but removes the corruption resistance, he will gain the mutant trait. People often say that once you turn into a mutant, there is no going back to being normal. But he was sure he could do it, knowing that as long as you keep your mind clear, even just a little, you can change who you are. That's how he survived the change and gained the power to fight back against corruption. The stadium lay in ruins, utterly smashed beyond repair. Kim felt so dizzy after the fight that it seemed every bone and muscle in his body was jiggling around, and he never wants to feel that way again. But right after that, he stands back up. A purple sphere sits in the Hedgehog's mouth until Kim reaches out and snatches it away. Having finally claimed a level 1 mana core, he realized every moment of hardship had been worth it. He felt thankful for that level 1 mana core because this cleanup job was definitely worth his while. Deer asks if the guy is okay now that he turned into a mutant, while Kim worries that strange rumors will make things awkward for him. He says he took a big gamble, trusting he could turn back to normal. And guess what? He got incredibly lucky. Deer is shocked to find out it was just luck and calls it really strange. Kim hands him some mana cores, saying they're going back for fresh air while the others thank him for the level 0 ones. The warrior thinks that by saving their lives and giving them some mana cores, he's made sure they'll keep his secret. A deer stands silent in the Shinsu Force office, quietly watching Kim. He thanks Kim for getting through such a tough time and admits it must have been awful. Kim admits the work was hard, but he's confused about why Kim is trying so hard to impress him. Shinsu joked that if he had claimed to be a superhuman, he would have been given a real job instead of a cleaning one. The warrior thought he was a god. In the world of Arcane Su, where superhumans rule as nobility and strength is power, one awakens to the ability to command mighty mana. It made sense to him that he needed to be a superhuman to beat mutants, even though his special powers did the trick, and Cien Su says he deserves payment for cleaning up the mess. Kim says it would be nice to let him believe he's a superhero for now. The agency boss says he cleaned 5 areas that usually earn $50 million with a 20% fee, which should split to $5 million for the team, but this time he's sharing it his own way. He'll keep just 5% of Kim's share, hand out a bonus, and Kim is thrilled to walk away with $12 million. Sansu says he's glad to work with him, while the other guy thinks it's awesome to be a superhuman. Sliding the door shut, he scratches his head, trying to figure out how he'll ever spend all that cash. As he runs into a bald man, the man remarks that the warrior must be feeling great since he's probably been paid well. Kim nods and says they worked well together, noting that this was one of the people he collaborated with last time. The man then tells why he is there. He needs a favor. His wife is sick, so he wonders if the warrior would be willing to lend him some money. He apologizes for asking such a big favor since they only worked together once, while Kim thinks helping others is a bad idea because people can betray you at any moment and surviving is already hard enough. Kim quickly snatches the man's hand and scolds him, reminding him that he is older. Even if the reward is small, he gives him a level 0 mana core because he can't bear to leave him out in the cold. Later that night, in a shadowy alley, the man yelled that Kim was an idiot for pretending to be a poor old man and walking away with all that stuff. Servo wonders if he's new to this game, while the man bets that Kim would have given even more if he'd mentioned a sick child. Even so, he was furious that Kim was paying him more than real workers because she gave him part of his own pay to cover the fake superhuman. Servo sighed, admitting he wasn't even a real superhuman and that it was the perfect moment to teach him a lesson. The old man wonders if he has a good idea, but the leader, with an evil grin, can't believe he doesn't see it yet, guessing the fool must have some strange power. He warns that they've already discovered his secret and are ready to teach him a tough lesson. He squeezes out all his level 0 cores, ready to face the terrifying world. Inside a huge, fancy building, Kim tells himself that money is amazing and he never imagined getting a massage here, even though the game feels better than real life until the master presses hard on his arm. Kim realizes that even after 3 full days of resting in the hotel, the pain still lingers, so for now on he'll have to think twice before tapping into his mutant powers. He quickly learned that changing his traits isn't magic. Every time his body shifts to match a new power, the harsh side effects get worse. The real challenge is finding a way to stay alive without using up your special powers. Peering through the window, he spots something odd and wonders if it's the Iron Fist gang again, strutting around with that same arrogant swagger. In Arcane Sue, the gangs run everything instead of the law. It makes sense given all the monsters roaming around and how much people depend on superhumans. Though he survived the first round, he knows that in such a deadly world, skills aren't enough. So he forces a smile on his face and heads straight to the item shop in Seoul to find what he needs. She asks if he's selling anything, and he nods, telling her he's got some real monster leftovers to show off. She lowers her eyes and admits she ought to warn him before anything else happens. They aren't buying level 0 cores, and Kim already knows this, so he plans to sell something else instead, leaving the girl surprised when she finally sees the core. She wonders if the mana core is level 2, and Kim nods, telling her to take a closer look. He feels great seeing her surprised, knowing all his effort in that hotel room was totally worth it. He poured all his strength into one desperate effort, and thank goodness he finally managed to forge a level 2 mana core. The price jumps as you level up, so if you want to sell it for the most money, you'll need to follow these steps. The girl hands Kim $4.77 million for the core, and after he thanks her and asks if they sell weapons or armor, she confirms it and tells him to follow her. Kim stepped through the storage door with a grin, noting that everything they needed was right there. And while he thought the items were just basic game tools, the girl told him to make himself at home, so he filled his pack with weapons and walked out into the street, feeling like he was finally ready for Arcane Soul. A woman's polite voice stops Kim, asking if he's a mercenary since she needs his help. Kim shakes her head and tells her to find someone else, but the girl slides him cash, saying she's on a business trip in Sue, and warns that the Iron Fist gang is terrifying. He asked if he could walk her to her apartment, and Kim thought that paying $50,000 a day for a bodyguard sounded like a daily quest, so maybe he should say yes. He placed a hand on her shoulder and told her he couldn't walk away from a woman in trouble. Pointing ahead and wondering if it's time to head out, they stride up a narrow back alley on the edge of town. The girl whispers that they're almost there. Kim thinks the place feels weird because there aren't even any ants on the ground or a single person around. The girl steps into a narrow alley and points the way down that street. Worried, Kim turns to see the girl in the dark, saying they're almost there. The warrior complains that the shadows are too deep and he can't see a thing. Suddenly, he finds himself able to see in the dark. In the shadowy darkness, he spots a weapon. The girl stood ready to fire, surprised by how cautious the mercenary had been. Kim is puzzled by the gun and fears the woman planned an ambush, but the deer cuts off his escape to ask where his junior is running and jokes that it's great to see him again in a spot like this. Kim wonders what he did to deserve this. Deer claims he did nothing, yet he was foolish enough that there is no other reason. Kim tries to run the other way, But the leader stops him to start talking before running off and telling everyone to shoot at the warrior. A bullet strikes Kim in the back. He tumbles down the stairs. Deer grumbled that he should have aimed for his legs instead of his back. The girl admits he was better off staying put, so the leader thinks he is already dead. He had changed back into a human after becoming a mutant, and he knew a mage would be ready to buy the body. The companion steps up to carry the bag and all the gear for the time being. Deer says they'll deal with it first since the body is gone, leaving him wondering where it went. A skylight bursts open and smashes into the neck of one of Deer's partners. They wonder what that noise was, while Deer checks to make sure Kim is still okay. The guy tells him to bet on it, refusing to let his life be lost to a traitor who repays kindness with betrayal. He walked out of the armor shop already wearing a bulletproof vest, which gave him the special trait he needed, plain dead. Deer shouts that Kim smashed the streetlight, and now he's blind. Kim slipped past him and asked if he was looking for her, since she saved his life, and now she was going to take it back, while insulting the group's leader. He lands a hard punch on the man's face and sends him crashing to the ground. The deer attempts to rise, but slips and ends up sitting on the floor. He lunges to kick Kim, but the guy slips out of the way and says that Deer should be thankful for being saved, since killing your savior is the wrong thing to do. Then he punches him in the face one more time. Kim is about to stomp on the girl's face, but she shoots first. Kim glances at his injured arm and worries he was too careless, then asks if Deer is all right. In Arcane Soul, the real terror isn't the monsters or mutants, but the people themselves. He had been too trusting before and vowed never to be fooled again. So he quickly pulled his gun, blasted the girl's hand to knock her weapon away, fired at another teammate's shoulder, and declared the fight over. Kim shoots at the wall again, warning that he must kill Deer just to be safe, while the man tries to kick him. The warrior didn't see it coming, so he barely managed to dodge, and his gun was knocked right out of his hands. At that very moment, the Deer's legs finally changed as he awakened something powerful within himself, but the world around him still felt dangerously unbalanced. Every playable character holds the secret to a superhuman awakening, ready to unlock it whenever the story demands. The game uses a simple step-by-step system to track your growth. In the world of Arcane, a level 1 superhuman is so powerful that a single civilian with a rifle can't even stand chance against them. Basically, he's got to fight a superhuman with just his bare hands. Kim suddenly loses sight of the deer, and the man is left wondering where it vanished. The man who woke up started putting his skills to use. The deer fights with a special way to move and a powerful kick. The user can glide with surprising freedom by letting the leg's incredible bounce do the work. Kim watches as he uses his special ability to scale the building's wall. Servo yells that he's sending the warrior to hell, so Kim has to roll out of the way. The warrior dives to the ground to dodge the blow. Then the awakened one asks just how he managed to dodge that blow. Breaking through the ground, he rushes at the boy and screams that he won't get away this time. Kim grins, blocks the leg with his extendable stick to show he isn't running away, laughs at calling the guy an animal, and thinks it was a smart move to buy it. Hours earlier in the armory, he questioned if buying a weapon was truly worth it. Even though Warrior Kim gets stronger, being a warrior still means he has a limit to how well he can handle a weapon. Just in case he decides to buy a weapon for the warrior too. He picked up the baton in his hand. Every character wields tools and abilities that make them the perfect fit for their role. That's why he pulls out the baton once more to close the gap and fight like a true warrior. Kim strikes up from above, knocking Servo's shoulder and earning the attack trait. His warrior class trait, attack, lets him charge forward with a downward slash, an upward strike, and thrust. He ended his combo with one final sweeping slash. Servo glances to the side as he slips away, launching a high kick aimed at Kim's head. Kim knows he can't turn back now, so he must figure out how to slip past this opening. Even with a broken bone, he keeps charging forward and slamming into Servo's thigh. The kick strikes Kim's arm while the stick wounds the other fighter's leg. As the warrior glows with Aurora and gains the powerful combo trait to take down Servo, he swings his weapon with a deadly mix of attack and combo. The awakened one begs him to stop, but Kim delivers the final hit to his stomach, knocking Servo out cold on the ground. As the rain pours down, Kim feels grateful for beating the awakened Servo. His hand tingles and turns red, and he can't help but wonder what strange feeling is happening to him. Even though his whole body hurts, there is still something overflowing inside him. Curious about what it might be, a sudden boom blasts open the scene. Kim opened his hand to feel the power of the arcane soul, closed it tight, and realized he was now a superhuman. Then Kim cheers loudly, thrilled that he's suddenly getting offers for high-paying mercenary work and even low-interest loans. A man puffing on a cigar asked if he had done it. Kim spins around to find a huge man standing right in front of him. Meet Iron Fist Kim, the second hero to join Arcane Seoul after Warrior Kim, a tough soldier with a metal arm who is a master of guns and hitting his targets just right. But the trouble is, he leads the Iron Fist gang. Kim admits he fought within their own lands and likely made things worse. The soldier asks if he even knew where he was before making the mess, and the boy replies that he was attacked and couldn't afford to die there. The gang leader raises his gun and asks if they think they're scarier than the Iron Fist gang. Kim sees that if he keeps fighting, he'll die for nothing. The soldier presses the gun against his chest and warns him that messing with their territory comes with a terrible price. Kim glares fiercely and asks if that's true, then grabs the weapon in his hand to show he won't give up his life so easily. As the soldier pulls the trigger, he realizes the gun in his hand is his own. Kim stands up, puzzled by the tickle that just made him feel better thanks to his healing power. The soldier laughs and says he has a rather strange talent. Kim wonders if this is the superpower version of healing that kicks in after you become a hero, a trick he'll use to fool people into thinking he won by luck, and a warning that anyone who messes with him better be ready to fight. The soldier repeats his name, admits he respects the bravery shown, decides to let this go for now, but declares that he owes the other man for it. He gives Kim a nudge on the shoulder and makes sure he knows what it really means. The warrior promises to remember that and starts wondering if the soldier knows who he is. The gang boss reached out his hand to ask for another chance to team up next time. Kim thinks Iron Fist never lies, so reaching out to him feels like a smart choice that sounds just right. He squeezes the man's hard hand, promising to see each other once more. At the Jam Cell Tower of Superhumans, Kim admits he never imagined the game would be such a wild spectacle, completely unlike anything back home. A girl thanks Kim for visiting the Superhuman Tower and offers help. And while Kim admires her beauty and wonders if she's just a computer program, she tells him to go to the machine to measure his mana and traits if he's there to get certified, which he does with gratitude, realizing she knew he was a total newbie and guided him anyway, because getting that certificate is the first step to his real life. Something odd happens and drags Kim along. As the crowd joins hands to honor the saint, Kim realizes they're standing on a magical ship where a glowing rune has turned the entire floor into a powerful spell. The old father gave that order, but he wonders why a boss has appeared here in the tutorial while she is still seen as a saint that everyone prays to. As the tale unfolds, we learn the group is really a cult hiding behind a religion's mask, and they start attacking innocent people without any warning. Everyone is wondering if the saint came there for a mana test, since she probably wants to level up. A glowing light wraps around the saint as she looks up and smiles at the sky. Kim thought it sounded just like a noisy mana scan. The circuits glow bright yellow before the golden light slowly fades away. As he gazes up at the sky, the saint keeps on smiling. The citizens prayed with nervous hearts while the saint, a powerful priest with 8 mana and 6 magic circuits, was rumored to possess 6 special powers. But Kim knew that hoping for miracles wasn't the right move right now. A level 8 superhuman is as mighty as an entire squadron of aircraft carriers. Basically, he is a walking superpower who is strong enough to wipe out Sue in the future. But if he spoke up now, they'd call him crazy and throw stones at him. For now, he'll check his mana power, keeping his 3 active abilities hidden to avoid standing out too much as a newcomer. The saint suddenly turns his head the other way. Her team asks what's going on, and she tells them that Kim has a strange, interesting power. Kim freezes in fear and stumbles backward, turning her back on the saint. She asked the boss what he just said, because she felt like he suddenly changed his usual self. Kim had special powers, yet a soldier couldn't believe a holy figure would talk to someone who looked just like any regular person. The saint takes Kim's hand, asks if she can learn his name, and he introduces himself as Warrior Kim, thinking that a priestess in Arcane Seoul would only ask for a name out of some hidden, dangerous reason. The saint tells him that the ancient father, who rules from the black gold throne and craves rare power, wants him to submit and find peace in this hellish world, so she acts on his behalf to baptize him. Everyone around whispers that they're jealous to see the old father's own daughter baptizing him herself. Kim is furious because getting baptized would force him to join the order as a paladin, leaving him no choice but to become one. However, the old father loses his war against South Korea to the major figures of Arcane Seoul. He tightens his grip and pulls back from the saint, realizing he refuses to bet everything on a cause that's headed for destruction. The citizens keep moving in a circle while Kim stands firm against baptism, leaving the saint so shocked she thinks she must have misunderstood. The warrior refuses to admit it because he's dead serious. The saint says he's free to take the call or walk away. But the old man had already locked his gaze on him. She rests her hand on his shoulder and tells him not to forget that a holy seed has already taken root within him. If you can't conquer this tiny seed, your precious freedom means nothing. Kim was burning while he knelt there. The neighbors couldn't understand how a newcomer had the nerve to turn down the baptism, so they felt bad for him. Kim thought the divine fever burning through his body would feel like he was ready for it, but the endless pain still made him feel like he was actually standing in a real fire. In Arcane Soul, the divine fever is a powerful curse that hits your character hard. The searing agony that robs a person of their life can only be washed away through baptism. He turned it down because he was thinking ahead, but it looked like he was going to die right then and there. His eyes rolled back as he faded away into darkness. Water splashes right onto his face. Kim is left guessing who was behind it. It was the same girl who had guided him earlier, checking to see if he was okay. Even though everyone stayed away from him because they feared catching his bad luck, he felt thankful for it. So, he chooses to hold on for just a bit more. Kim gains a special power that slowly puts out the burning flames, unaware that he accepted the ritual without thinking about the danger ahead. Aura lets his imagination stretch out and fill the space around him. First, he must gain the power of the gods, then pull more life energy into himself, and let that strength flow through his body. She kept pouring water over him. Kim realizes that even in this painful moment, the water of life still flows, and he must hold onto that strange, contrasting feeling. The fire and water come together deep inside him. He felt burning pain and cold, so he used the mana inside him to put out the flame and let go of all the energy from the divine fever. The wind grabs the guide and sweeps him away. Kim gains the mana barrier trait and convinces himself that this is exactly what a defensive warrior needs. The guide checks if he's all right, and Kim nods, giving him a grateful smile. The townspeople can't figure out how he got past the divine fever without ever being baptized. Kim realized he hadn't truly fixed the problem, but the barrier had quieted the burning pain enough for him to finally check how strong his mana was, even if the black flames felt a little strange. The bar fills up, the scan finishes, and reveals Warrior Kim standing with a mana level of 1 and a 6-layer circuit. Some say the saint picked him because he was a total rookie, but the warrior thinks he made too much noise when he just wanted to grow strong in silence. The man congratulates him, noting that he's never met anyone with his 6-layer circuit from the start, and asks if he'd like to get his superhuman license. Still at the superhuman tower, the girl hands him the license and cheers as he officially becomes a certified superhuman. Kim thought back to all the hard work he put in to reach this moment. The girl wants to explain the special perks for level 1, but the warrior shakes his head since he already knows every single thing. With lower fees, the freedom to carry a weapon, and the ability to earn tax breaks, immunity from jail, and access to all travel and perks as he grows stronger. The guide boasts he knows everything. Kim jokes he's a PhD in superwinology, and he asks if we can slip away quietly without dealing with the crowd outside. She nodded and said she had already gotten something ready. Kim looks shocked at her own bold move, but she smiles and tells him not to worry, just to follow her. The warrior thanked the guide for her kindness, including the stealth cloak and secret path, and she simply said helping others was no trouble at all. Kim picks up the stealth skill, thinking he found a free bonus. The guide points forward and says that's the exit, but he can only walk her this far because of the rules. The warrior thanks her and calls it more than enough, while the girl simply says it was no trouble. Kim realizes he never thought a person this kind could exist in Arcane Soul, and since she is also beautiful, he promises to return that kindness once he gets strong enough. She's trying to figure out his name since he gave her his business card. Kim stops dead in his tracks when he reads the name, seeing the word Saren staring back at him. She stands among the 3 mightiest heroes in the game. There's a berserker with a look so scary it made people afraid just to look at him. He found it odd that the person who always looked so scary in the game suddenly seemed familiar. He couldn't believe that Beck Saren was so kind, and he desperately needed to know what terrible thing had happened to her. Kim slashes through the final blob of slime to finish his mission. He believes that having superhuman powers is a terrible thing. He had spent a whole week nonstop clearing out this giant cave until he was totally drained. Sitting on the floor, he admits he finally finished the cave, but he's already exhausted because the work was so inefficient. Everything happened because he had to keep his focus on holding up the mana barrier. If he could just tweak his tools to sweep the cave, he'd be done in minutes, but that nasty curse keeps him from doing anything else. So he must find a special drink called nectar to cure his divine fever. But the cost is so high that the money from this cleaning job just won't be enough to pay for it. Kim's phone buzzes inside his pocket. He keeps wondering how many more times Director Choi is going to call. It's so frustrating because he says he's had enough, yet he hangs on the line just because a brilliant new idea popped into his head. He makes his way to the shoe agency. The director says that anyone who survived the divine fever without baptism and the man who began with a 6-layer circuit are truly honored to meet. Kim nods and agrees, admitting that things just ended up this way. They ask if he found the job he wanted, but Choi complains because getting the healing nectar is so hard since only superhumans at level 5 or better can give out the quest to earn it. Kim threatens to quit if he can't get it, but the director begs him to stay since it's part of his contract and he'll figure it out. Thinking about the director Choi, he knew he'd find a quest with nectar as a reward and asked what the mission was about. The director sets a tablet on the table and asks if he has ever heard of Number One Security. Kim says this is the first time he's heard of them, so he thinks it must be a security company. Choi says this private military company, one of the industry's largest, is run by a couple who come from traditional martial arts families. The warrior noted that only a wealthy family with a very serious matter would dare to make such a public request. Choi says the problem is their son. He's past 20 years old, but he still hasn't turned into a superhuman. Kim wonders how that can happen when her parents are both martial artists, so the director admits he has gathered level 8 mana, but still hasn't awakened. The director says the perfect match for Kim is a superhuman warrior of level 1 or better. The warrior smiles, promising to take a look at a very bright and beautiful mansion. Choi swings his legs and says that the president and vice president are usually so busy they never run late. Kim thinks the house is super fancy, but a woman rushes in to apologize for the long wait and thank them for coming, calling them her important clients, Seo Jungju and Lee Miri Choibos. Kim does the same, guessing they must be at least level 6 superhumans since both hold such powerful mana. Jungju grumbled that his weakness was obvious just by looking at him, but Mary quickly told him to stop talking like that and said her husband needed to go back to his room. The man sits down grumbling, but the woman insists that both of them take a seat since they've traveled so far and should agree to her request. Kim wants to check on her son first and figure out why he hasn't woken up yet. Jungju slams his hand down on the table and asks if he really thought he'd share something like that with a rookie. Miri urges him to calm down about their son's secret trouble, promising to call him with good news if he agrees. Kim realizes their son has a secret problem that must stay hidden, and she knows exactly what he needs to feel better. He becomes more and more sure he'll agree to their request and tell them to call their son. The door to the room swings open. The boy steps forward and tells everyone his name is Su Woojin. Kim stood up, smiled, and said it was nice to meet him, secretly thinking he felt no magic coming from him at all. The warrior spots something new below, proudly shows off his cool gloves, and the grateful boy accepts them as a gift he did not deserve. Kim tells the family that he should have known he needed such a powerful mana seal, leaving them all surprised. The warrior grinned, admitting that seeing the gloves made him sure he'd found the answer. Even though those gloves were a family secret, they still used as bait to lure a powerful hero to their door. Because Mr. Woojuin had been baptized by the old priest but refused to reveal his cursed secret, he sealed his own power to stop the divine fever from killing him, which is why he couldn't awaken. He heard a rumor about a level 1 superhuman who beat the divine fever, so he set out to find him. Win was totally blown away by his own realization, thinking it was so clever he didn't need to say another word, and even imagining Kim as the star of a detective show, while Kim just replied that it's all about reading and realized there's nothing to fear once you know what's coming. The instant his eyes landed on the photo, he knew it for a fact that Shu Jin would one day become the Order's ancient priest paladin, standing at the very front of the vanguard. He stubbornly refused to be baptized until his parents lost their authority, so he finally gave in and joined the old priest. Jungju steps forward to address Kim, "Sir," and asks if there's any way for his Woojuin to avoid getting baptized. The warrior realizes his own sudden change from arrogant pride to polite manners proves he has found the way out, just as his 10,000 hours spent mastering arcane Su have taught him exactly how to escape. He put a hand on the boy's shoulder, told him he knew the pain because he had suffered too, and promised to get him out of it if the boy just trusted him. Woojun breaks down in tears, sobbing "Sir" for Kim. The warrior pretends he doesn't care that she's a saint, yet she still dared to try to baptize him into that disgusting cult. And now, his future boss stood right beside him. Kim pulls away from the hug with a smile and asks for one last condition before treatment starts. And while his parents wonder what it is, his mother simply nods in understanding, because now the goal isn't just to wake him up, but to defeat the divine fever and save Woojin. Kim asks for one more thing as a condition. He wants to learn how to wield the powerful, mountain-crushing sword style. The warrior keeps smiling while Director Choi looks uneasy. Mary walks up to the boy and asks if he really gets what he just said. Kim is shocked by his scary vibe, realizing his deadly anger feels even worse than the vice president's since he's so powerful, as she knows he's furious enough to strike down a mountain with his sword. Some might doubt why anyone would learn to use a sword in this modern age, but true power is holding the authority to slice right through a tank with nothing but steel. With a single strike from a superhuman swordsman, An entire tank can be wiped out. High-level martial artists are swapped out for squadrons of fighter jets worth trillions. If a level 1 superhuman keeps honing the mountain-crushing sword arts, they'll effortlessly reach level 4, which is basically cheating. He recalls that only the elite are allowed to learn this sword fighting, worrying if he went too far, while Kim agrees to teach him only if he finishes the mission. Woo Jun shouts for his mother, and her desire to kill him slowly disappears. She finally realizes it's okay, so when he succeeds, she rewards him with a memory chip holding the mountain-crushing sword technique and some nectar, leaving Kim speechless, while he thanks her, thinking he was about to be killed by Mara, but instead got the secret sword skill. Mary warns that failure would make her and her husband angry, but Kim promises it won't happen and insists they start right away. They step into a room featuring a glowing mana circle and a stash of 200 potions that are just a step below the top tier. Miri says she got everything ready as he asked, and Kim agrees it should be enough, but he wants to be by himself with the patient for the treatment. She apologizes for the earlier mess, explaining that her Woojuan was forced into school without ever making friends, so she couldn't even join a family picnic. He was forced to stay inside his room and take the pain without being able to escape. It looks like they got too worked up about why things went wrong, so from now on she'll just let him handle everything. Kim thinks that the Saint's trap forced every single person in their family to suffer. Win thanks his mom for asking if he's okay, but he fears that in the game, he might end up turning against his own family and becoming cold-hearted. Feeling sorry for them, he comforts the lady and promises to make it work no matter what. Alone, Kim says they're starting now, and Woojun asks what he needs to do. The warrior asks the boy why he's shaking and tells him to calm down, but the boy thinks the warrior wants to torture him with injections and electric shocks to wake up his power. Kim asks what treatment the boy has received so far, and he replies that to cure the divine fever, one must drink nectar after waking up. But Woojun was so full of mana inside him that the fever burned fiercely within his body. The warrior kneels to assure the boy that everything seen during training must stay secret, and the boy promises to keep it. So they started, with Kim having to stretch the mana barrier to its very breaking point. Then the wall starts to crumble, the warrior grumbles about the burning heat, but he reaches out to uncork the potions in his grip. As Win shouts for help, Kim casually tosses the potions behind him to open 2 more for himself, secretly thinking it's a terrible trade. After drinking many vials, he gains a medicine addiction that boosts his medicine's power, but drains his mana and health faster, leaving him worried about his focus. Kim wipes his mouth and declares the divine fever vanquished, thanks to the shield of darkness he has woven over the area. Woo Jun screams that it's too much, but the warrior says not to celebrate yet, because he has to take off his mana-sealing glove and reach outside the barrier to grab his own hand. Woo Jun warns that the 2 divine fevers are about to spark a dangerous reaction. Kim steps past the barrier, tells us his fever is no big deal because the barrier keeps him safe, and demands we just follow his orders without asking why. Woo Jun believes he's taking off the glove for the very first time. As he slowly pulls it off his hand, that is when the resonance finally begins. Kim checks how much magic power is inside him, finds it scary, and still has to grab his hand. He felt a terrifying chill running through his feverish spirit. Kim feels the pain is far worse than when the Saint baptized him, thinking it's like his bones are shattering and that he must stay focused to survive it, whether it comes from the Saint or the divine fever. He leaps forward, slamming down onto Woojuan right before the barrier crashes down. Kim is out of breath, gripping Win's wrist to say it worked because he just got the ability to soak up other people's pain. Woo Jun says he took off the glove and it was okay. Kim smiles, knowing that's exactly why they had to go through everything they did. Behind the barrier, he absorbed some of Win's burning divine heat, which made Woojuan's fever much weaker. He declares that this is the final step, drawing his sword and telling Win not to hold back, but to keep striking until he wakes up. The boy says yes, ready to finally put the sword skills he has practiced his whole life to the test. Then he shifts his stance. He leaps behind the warrior, striking at Kim's arms and boasting that he once shattered an iron gauntlet with a wooden sword to earn the protect trait. But even with that strength, one more blow like that would leave him barely hanging on. It makes no sense to believe Woojuan hasn't even woken up yet. As the monster's sword swings toward Kim, she wonders what kind of swordsmanship she taught that boy, since he's clearly struggling to dodge his blows. He crashes to his knees, instantly gaining a special skill called evasion. Kim decides to move fast because he's about to wake up. Woo Jun is quietly building up his magic power. Kim wonders why the sword and CEO are glowing the same color. At the SSR rank, he is the one called the Swordmaster. Kim believes he has reached a point where the sword is now a living person, making him an absurdly powerful warrior. But this guy is so weird because he's completely lost in a trance. Kim knows that getting hit means death, so he must use every trick he has and pour all his mana into shields on his arms with the help of the glowing circle in the room. He uses his 2 skills to stop the hit, but the force still sends him flying far away. A shimmering shield sprang up from the ground. Kim gets a new power that creates an invisible shield to protect him. By mixing the mana barrier and protect traits, the mana shield is formed. Woo-Jun barely survived merging with his blade, and the boy gave a weak groan. Kim can't believe what she just saw. Seo's eyes snap back to normal, and he crumbles to the floor on his side. Kim questions how he could have lost his consciousness so peacefully after almost ending his own life. Seeing the boy nearly asleep on the floor and struggling to stay awake after waking up. In the game, Se Woo-Jin starts as a mighty sword-wielding warrior rather than a paladin, even though he is a powerful SSR character. Maybe he made a monster by turning Se Woo-Jin into a warrior rather than a paladin. He doesn't know how this will shape the story ahead, but since he was born into a golden cradle, wields immense strength, and now owes him a favor, he can't complain. Mary says her son beat the divine fever, so the parents thank him and call him sir. Kim brushes it off, saying his master will handle it, while Choi adds his own praise for the boss. Woo-Jun was still feeling very sleepy. The woman whispers that it's been forever since they've seen him sleep so soundly, and she can't even figure out how to pay back such a kindness. Jeonju grins with his wife, promising not only the nectar and the swordsmanship memory chip, but also a bonus reward for success, while Kim keeps her head down in humility. They both push him to take the 1 billion, telling him it's a small price for what he did for their son. Kim agrees, knowing that saying no would only hurt their feelings all over again. Choi laughed in the car, saying the warrior had basically won the lottery. The warrior admits he knows they are beautiful. As the director drives and asks if he should drink the nectar now, Kim nods and says he's going to take a break from the dungeons for a while. Choi thinks that makes sense since he doesn't want to draw attention from the old priest's followers or those who know about his magic, even though it's a waste because refining and drinking the nectar would have boosted his mana greatly. Kim nods in agreement, convinced that if he purifies the liquid and saves it for later, he could boost his power without wasting his limited supplies on curing the divine fever. Choi shouts to the warrior at the hotel, promising to find what's needed to make the nectar stronger and telling him to save some for later. Kim smiles and says she'll think about it before thanking him. He uncorked the nectar, declaring he'd drink it right away because after seeing how cruel the world of Arcane Sue could be during the servo incident, he knew he couldn't trust the director not to betray him. He can still get the most out of the nectar because he has special powers and is used to relying on magic and potions. Kim tosses the bottle down, screams as it feels like his muscles are shattering and rebuilding themselves, and feels his body filling with so much power. Kim, writhing in agony from the potion, suddenly opens his eye and triggers an explosion that lights up the whole building, pushing him to superhuman warrior level 2, curing the divine fever with the nectar, unlocking Black Flame, and earning one of the game's best traits. With the Black Flame and mountain-crushing swordsmanship finally added to his skills, he lets out a sigh of relief and can now focus on training them without a care in the world. His phone buzzes with an unexpected message from director Choi, but he ignores it and keeps training. But the phone keeps ringing louder and more often than before. Kim asks why we're rushing. The warrior got a bunch of texts telling him to get stronger and ignore mean comments, so he's confused because he never talks like that. But he realizes the message came from the mountains, not a person, and the words are all in big letters. While reading about a chase with a gang, Kim suddenly notices a secret message hidden inside the story. The Dagger Gang stands as the fierce enemy of the Iron Fist Gang. If the director wanted to betray him, he'd call like usual to buy time, but since he sent that message, it means he was caught first. It looks like the information got stolen while he was setting up his gear. Kim feels uneasy about it, but decides to ignore it for now, since he already got the nectar he wanted, and in Arcane Sue, everyone is responsible for their own life. A scream cuts through the quiet alley. The man grumbled that the gentleman was incredibly stubborn, refusing to reveal the rookie superhuman's location even after a whole night had passed. Choice agreed to sign the contract because he trusted him completely, promised to keep his mouth shut, and believes their actions don't matter anymore. The man sighs that he never wanted to come to this, but now he has no other choice. He grabbed an axe to strike him and asked which arm he wanted to lose, the right or the left. If he stays quiet, then it's the right choice all by itself. A massive explosion rocked the building. The man asks his subordinate what that was, and then he shouts outside to find out what's going on. The wounded henchman cries out that a bastard is outside. With the sniper's scope locked onto the room, Kim tossed grenades into the building while declaring that the Dagger Gang had picked the wrong person to mess with. In the cruel world of Arcane Soul, you can't just leave someone who keeps their word alone when they start the war with a grenade that blows up the gang's area. He held his sword ready for the fight. The gang members asked where the shot came from so they could find him. Kim says, just as I feared, they're scurrying out of that building like cockroaches, and even though it looks like a regular apartment complex, I know every single room. Since he fought his way through the Dagger Gang's 6-building dungeon until he was completely drained of energy, since the Dagger Quest is just a tutorial, he can now finish it with his eyes closed. So, he gets ready to run and says that from now on, the veteran will finish the mission. The gang members glance around nervously, hunting for a sign of Kim. They wonder if the crazy Iron Fist gang is behind this and ready to beat anyone who catches them, but then they hear a sound. One of them spins around to ask what that was before deciding to go check it out. Kim ducks behind a trash bin and asks what it is, only to find nothing there until a hand slams into his face, pins the gangster down, and reveals that the guy couldn't recognize him even with him right in front of his eyes. Since the Dagger Gang always keeps their hostages right next to the boss's room on the 5th floor, there is still a long way to go. He creeps quietly to stay hidden, but a loud alarm blasts warning of intruders inside the building, forcing everyone to grab their weapons and rush to the meeting spot, while Kim grumbles that they've already been found out. He walks to the door to get closer to the inside. The gangsters chatter about their minigun while Kim aims at their weapons and feet, shouting for a counterattack and swearing at her. He hurls a grenade into the air, sparking another blast inside the building. Kim declares that he doesn't take the long way and one grenade simply won't be enough. He throws every last grenade he has left. As he shouts that it's amazing because they loved his little gift, explosions burst all around him. The smoke in the room finally clears. Kim stares at the bodies on the floor, wondering if they're the only ones left, but knows someone must be hiding. He stays ready for an attack, and when a gangster suddenly pulls a gun, screams at him to go to hell, and shoots, Kim simply ducks out of the way because he has just unlocked the sensory trait. Now that he has the power he needed for the dungeon, the gangster is the one heading to hell. He punches him and declares he is moving up since all the weaklings have been taken care of. He slowly climbed the stairs, figuring he'd made it to the 4th floor without a hitch. But the real trouble begins now, as gang members are already waiting on the 4th floor right before the 5th and the boss's room. Kim slips silently along the wall to watch, but he jumps when he sees what's up ahead. With the house empty and the bedroom silent, something felt wrong, so Kim grabbed his new ability to focus and strained his ears to catch any sound coming from the floor above. Kim grumbles as a drone buzzes overhead, dropping a grenade that flashes blindingly bright just to blind him. An assassin sneaks up from behind to stab his shoulder, but the boss yells, "Little rat," only for Kim to stand firm with a shield and demand, "Who do you think you caught?" The assassin steps back, confused and asking how his dagger failed to pierce through. Stepping back from Kim, the warrior snaps, "Aren't you the rat? And who do you think you are to call me that?" He realized the boss wasn't supposed to be on the 4th floor, which was a real danger since this wasn't just a game, but he had figured out how the enemy moved. As the flash grenade blew, Kim squeezed his eyes shut, knowing a bright flash was the boss's usual trick, so he had to sharpen his focus and get ready before the giant showed up. The leader of the Dagger Gang was an assassin who had to use all 5 of his senses to guess where the next attack would come from. The assassin complains that Kim ruined his ambush, but Kim laughs, pulls out his extendable baton, and warns him that he'll wish he'd picked a different target. He lunges forward to tackle the assassin. He swings his blade sideways in a quick slash. The assassin jested that he was acting far too cool for someone moving so slowly. Kim watches as the dagger flies straight for the warrior, only to bounce off harmlessly. He realized that just like any good assassin, his speed and sharp focus were what kept him alive. That dagger held a deadly poison that would turn Kim into a corpse just from a brush, and the longer the battle went on, the closer Kim was to dying. The killer claims he got lucky and offers to give up just one arm if he hands himself over now. Kim tells him to stop talking nonsense and come fight. The gang leader cackles, mocking the man's terrible grip on that massive sword and boasting that he's clearly just a shooter. The warrior realizes he was wrong to think his class was just a strong soldier simply because he used guns. Suddenly, the assassin lunges forward, screaming that he will rip him apart and kill him in the most painful way imaginable. Kim knows he is just one shot, so he lifts his sword while the enemy is caught off guard. The assassin admits he's moving too slow. Kim twists his face, takes a deep breath, and spins his sword to slash backward at the surprised assassin who never expected a swordsman to mix in a combo attack. So he drops low and uses his dagger to stop the attack. Kim says sorry, but when he changes, he stops being the guy who shoots. He has become a legendary warrior who fights only with his sword, unleashing the first style of mountain-crushing slash to strike the man's shoulder with his powerful mountain smash technique. The assassin lets out a blood-choked scream as he spits out a mouthful of red. As Kim pants heavily on the floor, He warns that losing his guard means losing everything. The killer readies his next strike, knowing the fight isn't done. Kim asked if he was playing his last card. Blood splatters all over the apartment windows. The assassin crumbles to the ground. Kim is lying there with a sword driven deep into his belly. The warrior admits that letting his guard down too late let the poison spread through him. So now he must change his very nature to survive. He tapped into his regeneration powers and healed the wound on his belly. Kim grumbles that he can take more, even though it really hurts. The gangsters get the word to head upstairs right away, because someone is lurking inside the building. Kim shouts that they can't waste a second and must sprint out of the building right now. Director Choi tumbles out of his chair in the Dagger Gang's 5th floor office, desperate to escape, only to find someone blocking his path. Kim wonders how he got caught since he was so tough, and Choi asks if he came to save him. The warrior tells the director to leave right away since the others are coming, and the director nods in agreement. He makes a brave effort to stand all by himself. Kim angrily blames the gangsters for their cruel act and tells Choi to scramble up, while the warrior warns that they must hurry to find safety. He believed that, even after taking such a beating, the director stayed true to his word. Even though Arcane Su felt like a cruel place, he was still caught off guard by a sweet moment like this. So they rushed to Shinzu's agency, downing a few healing potions until Kim feels the poison wash right out of him and earns the trait for resisting it. Choi arrives carrying extra cans and tells him to drink them all, but Kim shakes his head, saying he's already had enough. The director says no apology can fix the mess of him trusting his staff too much while they were handling his precious nectar. Kim nods because he's already taken the nectar, which leaves the director speechless, but the boy insists that without it, he never could have saved him. Toy grumbles about having to drink such a precious nectar to save him, while Kim thinks it wasn't his fault but lets him believe whatever he wants. Someone knocks on the door of the agency. The director keeps checking to see if the Dagger Gang has already made it there. He asks what to do as Kim spins around, opens the door to welcome their guest, and freezes in shock to find the Iron Fist Gang and its leader, Kim, standing right there. Kim greets the group, but Iron Fist calls the idea that he wiped out the Dagger Gang on his own absurd, insisting Kim was no ordinary man and demanding to know why he summoned them there. Kim believes the reward is coming his way because it's finally his turn after such a tough mission. Two rival gangs, the Iron Fist and the Dagger, are locked in a fierce battle to rule over Silemeria. In the game, the tutorial asks you to help Iron Fist by wiping out the Dagger Gang and destroying them, which will earn you many great rewards. He asks if Kim plans to start an organization, but Kim says no, explaining he's staying on the surface to keep the Dagger Gang's territory alone as payment for a past debt. Iron Fist claims he stands to gain nothing by accepting the deal, and the whole thing feels like too good of a bargain for just a simple debt. Kim jokes that since he now owns the Silemeria, Iron Fist should make his wish, and the hero asks him to share it right away. Kim thought to herself that everyone loves to have something like that. He is dreaming of having a house all his own. Iron Fist says the words again. Kim tells us that in this cruel world where he stands all by himself, he finally sees he can't go on without someone new. Bothering his gang leader by claiming his stomach was hurt in the fight with the Dagger Gang, the leader agreed since Kim had taken out their rival. The warrior boasts that he is a man of simple ways. Iron Fist Kim offers a choice between a fancy mansion or an apartment, but the man turns them down, insisting instead on a quiet home with strong security, perfect soundproofing, and a secret training room down in the basement. The gang leader repeats the offer, claiming he owns a house with those exact specs, while Kim crosses his fingers for luck. The house stood at the very top of Jonyabon, right on the edge of slum. Kim realizes this is the very first home given to the player as their base in Arcane Soul. He leaned back in his chair and smiled, saying that this was what a real home felt like, with air so pure it tasted like freedom and a view that was simply perfect. What a stunning and grand house to see. Kim explained that when he first woke up in Arcane Soul, he was completely lost and overwhelmed because the hospital bill was already a staggering 20 million. Now he lives in a home much nearer to the Grand Palace. He's even got enough cash from Security Number 1 and Director Choi to stay in the hospital worry-free for a whole year. But in Arcane Su, there's no time to enjoy the victory. The moment the game story moves forward, dark villains like the Saint of the Old Priest Order will show up and tear the city apart. Kim grabs his pickaxe and heads out to finally find out why he chose this house. We're heading toward the underground training center, which should be just around this corner. Now, when they get to work, he smashes the stone wall, and everything crashes down in front of him, leaving him shocked. He noted that his skills are hitting the mark, and he might knock this out sooner than anyone expected. Kim digs down as fast as he can, grumbling that he never expected the treasure to be this deep, but with no way to turn back, he is determined to get out soon. A liquid starts to seep out of the stone. As Kim takes a sip of the water, she slowly feels her energy coming back. And he adored that flavor because he could feel his body getting better right before his eyes. That's the power of the mana spring, a fountain bursting with raw magical energy. Even if a character's life hits zero, a quick dip in the mana spring can bring them back to life. And most of those bad effects fade away, showing just how amazing its healing power really is. The spot where he could tap into that incredible mana spring for free was the John Yubong house, the gang's very first headquarters. He had to struggle through a long, hard journey to reach it, unlike the easy gain you could get with just one click. He was bursting with energy, so he could instantly feel what happened to him. He grabs a sword and notes that the mana source is perfect for training, since he can recover quickly if he runs out of stamina and then start again. Now it was time for the first and only ultra-efficiency training class designed just for free-to-play players. As night fell over Kim's mansion, he realized it had been 2 weeks since he locked himself away in the training room. Now in this state, he calmly awakens the black flame. Mana starts to coil itself around the blade. Kim swings his sword high with the first move, Mountain Crush, then dashes forward using the second, Mountain Divide, and ends it all with a sharp thrust to the final style, Mountain Pierce. Kim said he has finally learned to mix the mountain-splitting sword moves with his black flames. And that's not even counting the handy skills he learned while training. He says he's finished his training goal, leaving just one important thing to do, learning the mana cultivation technique. If he had purified the drink before sipping it, he would have become a legendary hero of level 3. But now that he's reached level 2, a little bit of power still hums inside him. To drink the nectar and hit level 3, he needs a special mana training trick, but he can't afford one since they cost tens of billions. He walks into Kim Chunbaka's antique shop, where she asks him why he wants to buy it. The shopkeeper says the technique has been sitting in storage for over 10 years, and Kim agrees to the purchase, finally getting his hands on the mana cultivation method. He was likely the only one who knew about the secret mana training method hidden away in that old shop. Now he walks toward the Shenwan market where that old antique shop sits. He steps into the store and spots something odd at the door that makes him wonder why it's shut tight. And on top of that, the doors were locked tight with a special mana seal to keep anyone from getting inside. Shenwan Market was the biggest in the area, and you could find just about anything there. In the game, this spot stayed open all day long, no matter what. So he wonders why everything is shut down, especially since most other shops are closed too, leaving the streets completely empty. Kim wonders if the strange world of Arcane Sioux is really different from the one he knows. He crouched right next to the door. The young man walked in and asked if business had been tough lately, since even the shop owner who stayed open didn't look like he was doing well. The old man wonders if anyone would dare go there with gangs fighting daily, noting that Kim calls it straight gang territory. The store owner curses the Iron Fist gang, complaining that since the Dagger gang was wiped out, the smaller gangs have been fighting each other every single day. Kim keeps saying they fought each other, but back in the real story, the Iron Fist gang wiped out the Dagger gang and took over the Shenwan market for themselves. This time, he took down the Dagger gang, turning the market into a battleground where other gangs rushed in to fight for control. Kim wonders why this is happening. As the gangsters fight a never-ending war, the warrior steps up to face them first. 2 gangs were fighting, and the Poison Gang leader told the Iron Fist gang to leave, claiming the territory was theirs and pointing out that the woman was their vice leader, Steel Scorpion. A tough guy calls them bastards, but then another man walks in and asks what kind of mess is going on in his land. A bunch of guys standing around in their underwear. Scorpion complains that the perverts have arrived, but the exhibitionist vice leader of the Naked Gang claims it is his own territory. Scorpion snaps at him to stop the nonsense and get lost, while the exhibitionist asks if they are really going to keep doing something so sacrilegious. The tough guy from the Iron Fist Gang feels like everyone there is crazy and insists it's time for him to leave. Kim steps in to complain about the mess, gets recognized by a gang member as the man who destroyed the Dagger Gang, but a warrior tells him to stand up, finish his job, and order the thugs to stop fighting and gather up. He tells the Iron Fist Gang member to calm down and promises to help, realizing that to fix the market, he must first set up a new order. The Scorpion woman asks if Hubie thinks he's brave enough to tell her what to do. The exhibitionist wonders if that really was an offer. Kim thinks that while he could defeat his foe with all his might, he must first show his power in a fighting stance to avoid hurting the merchants. The Scorpion chants his secret moves, mountain crushing swordsmanship and divine fever, while the exhibitionist wonders if he truly killed the Dagger Gang by himself. Kim agrees and promises a deal so good they can't say no, challenging them to settle everything in a one-on-one fight. The second in command of the Poison Gang challenged him, asking if he thought she was too dumb to fight a warrior alone. The warrior agrees to match her in her strongest category, so they step up to face each other. He asks if the man's special power is controlling minds, noting that if the man fights back, the man will win, and the naked man calls it an honor to be in the presence of such a beautiful man. He wants to let go of the competition and lead Kim into the worship of the ancient goddess, but she refuses, calling it a gross cult that isn't even on any official list. He refused to join a fake religion, even if it was officially approved by Westphalia. The bear man scoffs, calling it only what a non-believer expects, and promises to bend Kim's mind to worship his goddess. He prepared himself, was ordered to kneel, and got the chance to meet his goddess. Kim realizes that the priest class had a powerful grip on people's minds. His eyes narrow, and though he wants to kneel before the man, he suddenly punches him in the face to break the control. He crashes down to the floor and lets out a groan of pain. Kim realizes that not even a saint can change his mind. As the naked gang decides to leave, the guy turns to the scorpion woman, who tells him he isn't so bad after all. But the poison gang plays a completely different game than those perverts. Kim refuses to believe it, insisting that she can only know the truth when the poison she makes him drink finally takes effect. She jokes that since he's ready to throw his life away, she'll help him do it. A gang member from the Iron Fist warns that drinking poison is like calling the creator, but Kim shrugs it off, acting like he's totally ready to take the plunge. As the scorpion slides a glass of poison across the table and challenges him to drink or lose, the game begins. The warrior knew the pain she handed him was the legendary picnic knockout, a poison that brings the most agony to them all. He jokes that the smell is terrible and he's getting punched if he survives, so the woman laughs and tells him not to ask for an antidote after he drinks it. Kim chugs the drink and shouts that it won't happen. The poison takes hold, sending the man crashing to the floor as if his blood is boiling. The girl challenges him to beg like a stray dog for his life, warning that only then might she consider helping, while Kim must focus intently because the only way to stop her deadly mix of poison and special drug is to build up resistance. He must use his healing power to take as much of the damage as he can, just so he can fight back against the poison. The scorpion feels a surge of power as he concentrates the poison's energy into his arm. After overcoming the drug's resistance and realizing he can command the poison with his mana, Kim slices his palm to spill the toxic liquid onto the ground, finally feeling ready. The Iron Fist gang member claims he squeezed all the poison's power into his hand to blast it out, but the scorpion stares in shock, sure it can't be done. Kim grabs her hand, admits the poison was terrible, and then breaks one of her fingers as his turn comes around. The woman lets out a blood-curdling scream and crashes to the floor, her prosthetic leg gone. She challenges him to see if he really thinks he can leave without getting hurt after doing what he did to her. Kim tells her to quit talking like a loser and scram. She turns to walk away, promising she won't forget what happened. As the Iron Fist gang roared for Kim and everyone thought the win was won, the real challenge was just beginning. While the merchants whisper among themselves about the Iron Fist gang's victory, they worry about the trouble that might come their way. Kim asks the gang member to admit he did everything to win this, and he thanks him. The warrior tells them to remember that while the new protection fee is only half of what the Dagger Gang used to charge, the gang members admit there won't be any profit left for them. The warrior asks if he was just talking back, but the executive shakes his head and says, "Don't worry, my boss will understand." The merchants hail him as the Shenhua market savior, showering him with thanks, while Kim jokes that he only did it hoping for some sweet discounts since the market has absolutely everything. The shopkeepers promise to always give him a huge 80% price cut. By doing this, he wins the trust and respect of the people around him. Kim steps into Kim Chunbaka's antique shop, where a warm welcome greets her. He says people have been talking a lot about him ever since he became the hero who saved the Shenhua market. The young man tries to stay humble, but the merchant admits that gangsters have caused so much trouble that he had to close his shop after getting into a fight and breaking his arm. So Kim asks if he received proper care. The old man tells us that Kinsong therapy worked wonders for him, because without his therapist, he'd still be stuck in the hospital today. Kim asks the old man for a therapist in Slum, and after he offers to make an introduction, the young man says he needs to buy something first. The merchant smiled and told him to relax, saying he already had everything except the one thing he didn't have. Kim praises all the great things upstairs, but he's eager to check out the items down below. The merchant asks how he knows that, and Kim replies that he has his own ways, while secretly thinking the merchant shouldn't underestimate a no-lifer who has spent over 10,000 hours mastering the game. They marched right up to a door that was off-limits. Chunbok says he never usually shows new customers this side of things, but he'll make an exception for him by opening up his magical collection and inviting him to look at everything. When Kim Chunbok played the game, he brought out a whole bunch of one-of-kind things. Above all, He holds the horn of an ancient god, a shattered relic hiding a sealed cultivation secret. Now that the most important thing was safe, he was ready to grab all the useful items. As the merchant spreads his wares across the table, he proves once again that he truly knows what he's looking at. 5 colored diamonds, enchanted glasses, magical gloves, and the ancient god's horn were all treasures so rare they seemed like magic. The total hit 2 billion, and Kim gasped in shock as she repeated the number. Chambuk explains that a stranger would have to pay that price, but since he is the guardian angel of this place, he can offer a much better deal for just 500 million. Kim jokes that he scared him with the price, and Kim hands over the money, thinking to himself that the huge 80% discount for being a favorite NPC was amazing. All that remains is for him to track down a priest-class superhuman to break the holy seal. And sure enough, he had already figured out where that person might be hiding. He asks the old man if he can tell him the address of the Kagong therapist he mentioned before. By late afternoon, the whole place was packed with buildings. Kim taps on the door and calls out to see if anyone is home. He pressed his ear to the door, wondering if the person had gone for a walk, but someone suddenly opened it and asked what he wanted so early. Kim realizes the man with the white hair and pale face is the one she's been searching for. He jokes that it's already afternoon and asks if he really thinks it's still early morning, while the young man just asks what he wants. The warrior praised the treatment as excellent, and the young man brightened with hope, asking if he was a customer before admitting he had mistaken himself for a gangster. He asks where Kim's injury is, but the warrior believes it fits perfectly with the statue. The doctor asks him to lie down on the bed, but Kim quickly changed the topic because he wasn't there for Kyung's treatment. He had come to tell him to take off the seal. The young man insists they must break the holy seal, but Kim refuses since the temple charges are way too high. If the young man manages to break the seal, he will give Priest Kim 100 million. He is stunned by that news and asks how Kim knows his name, which the young man confirms. Priest Kim was the 3rd person you met in the Arcane Souls tutorial. He is a priest of an ancient faith that worships a god who died 3,000 years ago, and he was one of the rare good guys in the whole game. In Arcane Soul, where so many priests have turned bad, it's nearly impossible to find a truly kind one. He's a man with many talents, yet the priest wonders just how he knows he isn't a healer like Kagong. The guy promises to keep a secret, but Father Kim notes that it's no easy job. They both kneel on the floor. The priest pauses for a moment, unsure of what to do next. They were pulling power from the strange thing Kim found. Runes begin to appear on the band. He claims it works, taking the band off the object using only his aura. He pulls the horn from the ancient god, unlocking a powerful cultivation ability hidden inside the jar she holds. Priest Kim can't believe it actually worked, but the warrior just smiles and says it's excellent. The priest asks if it's a mana technique, and the guy thanks him, promising that from now on, he'll blow the horn to fill the room with his aura. His body starts to change shape. In about 2 weeks, he'll soak up all that mana and become a level 3 superhuman. The priest clapped his hands, amazed that this was the first time he'd ever seen a warrior-class superhuman use a cultivation technique. Kim says it's rare, and he knows it, so his friend tells him to lie down on the bed because he must be totally tired. The warrior admits his mind holds too much knowledge for him to carry alone now, so he must rest in your care for a little while. The priest chuckles, saying that since he paid so much, he can rest whenever he wants. Kim realizes he's a kind soul, just like his game self, and finding such a trustworthy priest will be a big help down the road. The guy jolts awake in his bed, trying to figure out what made that noise. As the priest poured gas onto the money bag, Kim stopped him and asked what he was doing. He places the gas canister next to it, flicks a lighter, and whispers to the forgotten god to accept his offering and bring it back to life. He tossed the lighter down onto the suitcase. Kim can't believe what's going on right now. He shoves the lighter away to stop the priest and asks what's wrong with him. The priest says he has to burn the money to please his god, since only cash can buy power, and Kim admits he once believed that too. Kim's priest believed the god he served had been dead for 3,000 years, yet the game's religion had almost no power left until he brought him back to life. But he was certain the priest knew exactly how to serve his god correctly. He insists the method is wrong because he doesn't want to waste money. He wants to melt gold and turn it into smoke. The priest questions if Kim has ever tried gold, calling it a heretic's lie, but Kim realizes the man has never actually tasted it. The warrior confirms that his old method is why the god remains dormant and gold is now difficult to burn. So he suggests a new plan involving mana that intrigues the priest, leading him to agree to help the priest just as he was helped before. The pot bubbled over with a bright yellow liquid. The priest warns them to stop and says he shouldn't do this, but Kim insists he just trust him to drink the gold and says it will make divine power grow a lot. He concentrates so hard that he feels his god answering him, and because he keeps asking, he finally lets him give it a try. The priest takes a sip of the liquid and immediately feels a strange change washing over him. His smooth hair stands up straighter and straighter, gleaming on the floor as he kneels. When Kim asks about it, the priest screams because the result was even better than when he burned millions of them. The warrior promises that his strength will surge even faster with this new method, and the priest is ready to pay him handsomely for such powerful secrets. Remembering what else he had, he gives Kim a necklace that turns out to be a holy item with the power to heal. The warrior accepts the offer, admitting he can't refuse because he realizes it's far more valuable than he ever thought. And honestly, every mission priest Kim sent out turned out to be a real treat. He asks if he's okay with praying to his god with him, since he wants to pay back the priest's help, all while thinking he now belongs to him. A week later, the priest pleads with Kim to stop because he feels his entire body melting into gold. But Kim warns him that he still has much more to eat. He warns that growing that fast will give him mana poisoning, but Kim isn't sure if he'll actually end up with it. The warrior promises him nothing will happen, urging him to keep praying without worry because each of the 4 tutorial characters brings something special to the team. If Warrior Kim keeps his body pure, Priest Kim won't get poisoned by mana and will rush to become stronger. Then he tells everyone that the priest has finished. Mana begins to surround him, lighting up the whole place, while Kim quickly hides his face. As the priest comments, he can't believe he's reached level